we were in negotiations.
Investing in real estate, they're winning, they're making money.
What's up, everyone? Welcome to the Real Estate Educators Podcast, where we provide the education you can build on. I am your host, Kevin Amolsch. This podcast has been so much fun. We're helping real estate investors and real estate educators. So if you're out there investing in real estate or you're out there providing content to real estate investors, this is the podcast for you. I have a super special guest with me today, Mr. Ray Glymph. I'm excited to hear your story, man. Over 100 doors you own. You went homeless to over 100, and now you're dedicated to giving back and helping your community. Welcome to the show, man.
Thank you, Kevin, for having me. It's a pleasure.
Well, let's get into it. Real estate. You said you want to get into real estate because it provides some freedom. So take me back, man. How did you even get into it?
Yeah, so I got in by mistake. I think a lot of people get into real estate by mistake. It's kind of an accident, but I think my journey is the same. My first property was actually, I turned my basement into a rental. I had a buddy, we were playing pool one night, and he was like, man, I just need a place to live. This was in college. And I ended up, I was like, man, I got a basement that's just sitting down there. I never used it. If you want it, you can have it. And he was like, dude, how much? And I was like, how much would you pay? And he told me, and at that time, it was about half the mortgage. And so I was like, yeah, for sure. You could definitely move in, no problem. And that was my first journey. And to get into the bigger real estate deals, I was actually in a bar. I'll never forget, I was in a bar, and I was with some friends of mine. One guy, he's an attorney, a couple restaurant owners, somebody's in politics, a bunch of entrepreneurs, guys who were doing better than me at the time. And they started throwing around these terms: renovate, refinance. We could rehab it, and then repeat the whole process. And I was like, man, I don't know what these guys are talking about, but I need in. And they had this grandiose idea, each of us putting in $5,000 and putting together 40 grand, and then buying some property and then getting our money back and doing it again and creating residual income. And that became I think my foundation for real estate investing.
It's amazing what alcohol will do. Now, I have a similar story, but you beat me here, because when I was getting started, I rented out some rooms and the whole house hacking thing before that was even a term. And you know what I did, Ray? I actually gave them the price of the room. And I probably could have got more if I would have just said, how much do you want to pay me? So that negotiation 101 there.
Yeah, I got lucky with that one, I think. But at that time, it was spare room. So even if I made a couple $100, it was more money than I was making at it anyway.
Yeah, no, that's great. So you did the house hack, then you got in with your buddies from the bar and you started buying. Is it single family, or what were you guys doing?
Yeah, so actually, it's a funny story, and this is a story of perseverance. When it came time to all put our money together, everybody backed out. Every single person backed out of the deal. And at that point, I was like, man, I don't know. I'm already into it. I've done my research. I'm excited. And so to anybody listening, I found a deal. I found a deal on, who was it? Craigslist. My first deal came from Craigslist. It was the sketchiest of places to find a deal. But the guy was legit. I found a house. I think the purchase price was, like $25,000. It was in a bad neighborhood. So I probably overpaid for what I should have. And I ended up making that my first deal.
25 grand.
Yeah.
Where was this at?
This is in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. So it was a very emerging market. But the house was in rough shape.
Okay, and then you did this on your own. You found the deal,
Mm-hmm.
and then you go to your pals and say, let's do this together. We'll partner up and all pull together.
Mm-hmm.
They build, but you're like, I'm committed to being successful.
Yeah.
And you went ahead and did it on your own, it sounds like.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
How did you do that?
So I had owned businesses at that time, and I had lines of credit, some good credit cards. And that is how I got the funding for it, actually. And I actually learned a lot of the process as I went. So I had this mentality, this HGTV mentality. We see all this glitz and glam, and it's not really like that, man. I was in the trenches. It was terrible, but I did the work. And I'll never forget that tenant when the first time they handed me that rent check. I think my rent amount was $1,000, and I owned that place. Minimal debt, and getting that $1,000 check was somewhat life changing to me. It was almost that first taste of freedom.
Oh, I still remember that first one as well, man. I haven't had any guests on here that kind of described it like that, but that first check, actually, you just signing that lease. Do you remember the feeling when you
Hmm.
signed that very
Yeah.
first lease? Now, did you screen your tenant before you moved in?
Absolutely not.
Okay.
I'm gonna be honest with you guys. Absolutely not. I knew there was no, there weren't podcasts out that were, high level real estate. There wasn't, YouTube wasn't as affluent then. There were no resources for me to even learn this. So I was just like, all right, well, they're willing to sign, cool. You
Yeah,
know,
I did the same thing. That's so funny.
yeah, I'll take a security deposit. I'll take the check and go about. I did not screen my tenant, and it was actually a business. I leased to a business who they actually found the tenants for me, and that business actually maybe 4 or 5 months in actually went bankrupt. So lesson learned on that one. Make sure you screen your tenants. But overall, we had a great process. Towards the end, it got a little flaky, but we had a great process with those people.
Okay, so you didn't end up in an eviction or anything like I did on my first one.
Not with the first one, but the second one, we ended up with an abandoned property, some broken windows, graffiti on the house. Yeah.
No, I
So
handle that too. That's so funny. Dude, we have a
yeah.
lot of comedy here. So let's hear the story on the second one.
The lady ended up finding me. I had posted the property back on, I think, maybe Craigslist at that time. A lot of people had reached out. The lady ended up finding me. She toured. She loved the house. Got her moved in. I did no credit check, no eviction check, no background check. I just thought, man, this is a nice old lady. And she paid. They paid for about a year, which was great. No issues. And if we did ever have any issues, we took care of it as landlords. I took care of it. And then eventually I stopped hearing from them. And so I wasn't sure. About 15, 30 days, I ended up driving down to the property. Now, this property is about an hour from me. So I ended up driving to the property, pulled up to the property. Windows are busted wide open. You could tell people had been through there. The place was a mess, graffiti everywhere, trash everywhere. We ended up having to pay a company to get it all hauled out, get it repainted, get it ready for rent again. But learning lesson in that is a huge
Oh,
lesson. And
yeah.
I just posted this on my Instagram story, but when you see landlords with big leases, those big leases say I've learned something from my experience, right?
Yes. Take me in your mind, Ray, when you
Yeah.
pulled up to that property and you saw that damage, the broken windows, the graffiti, what was the feeling?
Um, I'll tell you, it was actually a worse feeling of the unknown driving up there because I didn't know if there would be a dead body there. You know,
Dude,
there is always worse because they have burnt half the house down. I didn't know what I was gonna get into, so the fear of the unknown was the worst feeling. For me, I'm always at the end of the other microscope of where, you know what, we could get this fixed, we could build it back better, we'll be okay, right?
so you
Let's
were
just see
happy to
how
see
bad it
broken
is.
windows.
Yeah, yeah, and at that time the tenant didn't was unresponsive, so at that point it was just like I'd rather have them out at this point and trying to communicate back with them. They're not answering, etc. So I'll be fine with that.
And this was still that very first property you bought for
Still the first one.
25,000. So
First
it's
one.
your second tenant on the first property.
Yep.
What kept you going?
Um, so at that point, I had already purchased my second unit, right? Same area, same bad area, didn't know better. But this next tenant was actually great. And I purchased it for the same price, $25,000, bad neighborhood. I ended up putting like I think another 25,000 in rehab into that one. Overspent more than I should have. Um, and same it was cash flow on the same amount. It was $1,000, and at that time the debt made sense. I didn't know about the 1% rule. I was getting a 2% rule at that point.
Yeah,
You
sounds
know,
like it.
and at that point I'm like, I'm still making cash flow. And bills are paid. I might as well keep going. Let's just fix this one. It's a hiccup. How can we be better? And as a true leader, you always want to have the mentality of how can I be better and what can I fix as I go along to make sure and ensure this doesn't happen again. So, and that was my mentality with moving forward with this project.
So your very first two were in the tougher part of the neighborhood,
Hmm.
and you were chasing. Well, let me just ask you the question: were you chasing cash flow, or were you chasing deals that you could afford to get into, or maybe it's both?
At that point, it was the deals that I could afford to get into, right? If I made a little bit of the spread, I think my debt on these things were like $300 a month or something like that. It was like minuscule debt for the amount of spread that I could make on it. So to net 600 or $700 was a great play. Um,
Yeah, makes sense.
and these projects weren't like big renovation projects. I mean, the first one was a little bit bigger because it's my first one, but the second one, the renovation got easier. It became fun for me, and so I didn't really know about the appreciation aspect. I didn't really know about the tax benefit, the depreciation aspect of it. I just knew about the cash flow. And if I could keep buying houses for that 25, $50,000 spread and make $1,000, if I keep growing this thing, I'd do really well. So that was when it clicked for me.
This is really a cool story. Man. What I want to get to though is why real estate. Like I understand the bar, I
Yep.
understand that, and you saw it.
Hmm.
Like why were you guys even talking about real estate? Oh, they were doing it. You said
Yeah. And,
they were
and
like,
so the research came in of like, one, most millionaires are, I think 90% of millionaires are made from real estate, right? And that kind of hit me of like, okay, I want to be a millionaire. I want the real estate. But I was also working a ton. I had owned maybe 3 businesses at that time. I had 2 bars and a restaurant at that time. And I remember my workload, right? So at that point in my career, I was making money, but I wasn't free, right? And so when that tenant actually handed me that check, all I could think was, I didn't have to cook anything. I didn't have to clean anything. I didn't have to stay up late. I just got paid. And then a month after that, I got paid again. And a month after that, I got paid again. And I was like, I could duplicate this, I'll be good, right?
love it.
I could scale this and make this great. I could really be free, and the income from the businesses become so minuscule that the real estate is what I really want.
Are you still buying $25,000 houses?
No, I'm not at this point. Good luck finding those too. I actually looked. I sold my first and second house. At that time, I thought it was the best investment. I didn't know anything about cash out refi and I sold that first and second. And that house today, I looked at. They had it on the market. It was for sale for about 160,000. I
Oh,
actually
wow.
only sold it for what the debt was on it too. So these people, I think they cashed out. I think they should net about 100 grand on that one deal.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So
I mean, I think every investor has a similar story. You regret the ones you sell or don't buy at all.
yeah,
I don't know of anyone that regrets the properties they kept.
you know, I'm happy I sold it though because that actually gave me the ability to scale into a multi-unit deal. Right. So that cash that I got from those two was enough to pounce me into my first multi-unit.
It's almost like this is scripted. I was just going to ask you, how did you get? Because I assume 100 doors isn't 100 single family. I mean, it
Oh
could
no,
be, but I assumed it wasn't. So,
no.
what got you into the commercial side of things or the multi units?
So after I had the first two, I thought, if I could get to 10 doors and start the cash flow of $10,000 a month and get it fully paid off, man, like that's retirement for most people to make 10,000 a month without having to worry. And at that point, I said, I got to get to that scale. And the building that one of my bars was in actually became for sale, and we ended up negotiating the purchase price. And that 100,000 that I sold both of those properties for actually became my down payment for the multi-unit.
Okay, so it's like, and you're just fumbling your way through this. It's like no one's taking you by the hand, Ray, and saying, "Here, this is how you do it."
No, no, and I think that was the hardest part. Again, at that time, there weren't any podcasts. I think Bigger Pockets had just came out, and there were a couple other smaller podcasts, but there wasn't anything to help, not much at all. And so I knew there was money to be made in real estate, and I knew if I had a vision, I could do it. And I think that's one of the biggest things that real estate and entrepreneurs have. We have vision, where most people don't, and that's why you can be successful.
Do you think that entrepreneurs have vision, or is it possible for someone who doesn't have a vision and struggles with that to be an entrepreneur?
Yeah, if your why is strong enough, like what is your fuel, what is your passion? So if you don't have a vision, but you have a strong enough why, you'll get there. And I compare it to the gym, right? Like if you go through a bad breakup, you don't know what your body's going to look like in the end. You don't have that vision, but your why is strong enough that you continue going to the gym. And eventually you get to the point of like, holy smokes, this is what I look like now. And you look at the old pictures and you see what you've become. And that's what I envision that as. So you don't necessarily need the vision. A vision helps fuel you to get to your goal. But if you have a strong enough why, that's where the success comes. My success it has come from my why. Being homeless before, and then the fear of failure. That is my why, and that pushes me to be more successful.
Okay. That's awesome. So a strong enough why, I wrote down here, a strong enough why will force your success. That's not exactly what you said, but basically. So
Hmm.
even without a vision, really with everything stacked against you, if the why is strong enough,
Yeah.
you'll have success. And your why now is the fear of failure because you've been through that.
Yes.
We jumped at the beginning of the podcast right up to your beginning in real estate, which
Mhm.
is what I typically do. But Ray, for you, maybe we'll go back a little bit further. So homeless.
Yeah.
I don't even know what that feels like, man. Take me back there.
So, and just to privy, it wasn't any like drug stories or anything. My family actually just fell on misfortune. And September 11th, after September 11th, 2001, my dad lost his job. My mom's, they were always minimum wage workers. We didn't come from silver spoon or anything like that, but they just couldn't keep up. In New York City, we had high inflation at that time as well, and rents went from. I remember it went from like 800 to 1,000 to 1,500, and then 2,000 within like 3 years. It was a like a fast and rapid incline, and they just couldn't keep up. So we were forced to go into a homeless shelter, and it was at that time I was in my adolescence, and it was pretty challenging. Seeing I remember there were rats crawling in the walls right where we slept, roaches. My family, we come from a very clean family, but being around that, I remember seeing my mom cry, remember seeing my dad down. And I always thought, whatever I do, I want to make sure that I don't put my kids in a position or in a situation where they have to be like this. So I will do whatever it takes to be successful, right? And financially independent, rely on no job. And if the job fails, then I'll have a backup plan. So at that point, I think I started working when I was about 14 or 16 just to help my parents and try to make ends meet.
And you were in New York at that time.
Hmm. Yep.
Are you in Pittsburgh now, or where are you
I'm,
at?
I'm in West Virginia right now.
Okay, so you stayed out on the East Coast.
Yep. Yep.
Is your parents are they in real estate or anything like that at all?
No, my parents really have no financial background whatsoever. Like I said, my mom was a minimum wage worker. My dad, I know he had a decent job. I can't recall what he did now, but he had a decent job. But again, it was enough to make ends meet at the very most. We never had a luxurious family like outings or anything like that. But I mean, they did what they needed to do to make sure that we could thrive.
And they're both still around, I assume.
Yes, both still around, still married. So
So proud of you. I bet.
yeah, indeed.
You close to them?
Yes, yeah. I actually just got off the phone with my dad right before this call.
Oh man, that's awesome. This episode is brought to you by Pine Financial Group. Pine Financial is a private lender specializing in short-term rehab lending to real estate investors. Got a property that needs some love? We can help. We are able to offer funding solutions because we raise private money from individual investors. With more than 15 years of experience, Pine offers passive investors an alternative that provides stability, consistency, and security to your portfolio. If you like real estate but want to avoid the ups and downs and effort, a Pine mortgage fund could be a perfect fit for you. Accredited investors will experience an 8% preferred return and profit sharing. Diversify your portfolio out of Wall Street and into Main Street with a Pine Financial Group mortgage fund. Get more information at pinefinancialgroup.com. That's pinefinancialgroup.com. So you're breaking a trend here a little bit. You're gonna probably raise your kids to be visionaries.
That's the goal. And in real estate, when we correlate to real estate too, I tell people your kids probably won't want your real estate, right?
Yeah.
Unless you have great systems and you live a great lifestyle, your kids won't want your real estate because they will see the headache that it causes you.
So I have um, recently remarried, and I have two kids. She has three, so we have five kids. We're a blended family, and they see me working my ass off, right, in real estate. And I could tell you, it's funny you say that because I could tell you, of the five, only one has shown just maybe a little bit of interest in it. They don't want anything to do with it.
Hmm.
So I find it very interesting that you said that. That's right, but right, you empower them to follow their dreams
Yeah, that's the goal.
and follow their why. So coming up with their own why.
Hmm.
Okay, so how old were you when you bought that first $25,000 house? Do you remember?
You're aging me right now. I want to say I was probably about 24, maybe 25, if that, somewhere in that age range, though.
So I was asking that question, Ray, because you look so young, okay,
Oh,
and
thank you.
you've done really well with yourself. So I was just curious, like, how long ago did you actually get
So that's
started?
10 years. That'd be about 8 to 10 years. I'm 34 now, so about 8 to 10 years ago.
Awesome. And now you're super successful, lots of properties. You also do some education. So I think
Mhm.
you're coaching and maybe speaking. Tell us about that.
So pretty much I teach people all through the US and Canada as well. We teach people how to invest in real estate, the true side of real estate too, because there are a lot of pitfalls. And I hate to see it on social media. A lot of people talk about the good side and, oh, I made this amount of money and we did this. It's not instantaneous, and social media makes it look like it's overnight, right? And everybody glorifies buying a property, but nobody talks about managing it. And and
Right.
and I've learned that the hard way. And through time and experience, I've learned that. So I share my experiences. I host a free masterclass every Tuesday, and we just have people hop on. We bring specialists. Maybe we can have you guys come on one time, and we talk real estate. We talk about today's climate. We talk about how to invest, different investment strategies. There's everything from low income housing, Section 8, using grants, to full redevelopments. So we talk everything for everyone.
You're providing to the community what you didn't have when you were getting started.
Yeah, yeah, and I think that is another reason why I keep it free is because there is such an amazing value there, and having a community, right? Just having a community of someone you can bounce an idea off, or a show you can listen to like this while you're in the car. They're so influential. These are things that you need. You need to be around people like this because your community is what's going to strengthen you, right? The community will add value to you, and eventually you'll put yourself in a position that you can add value back to that community.
Oh, that's awesome. And we all, I mean, you and I could probably talk for hours about horror stories and war wounds and all of this because we've been in the business long enough. And you are right. It's up and down. But wouldn't you say, Ray, the ups outweigh the downs and real estate is so worth it?
Oh, 100%. Like, I'm here looking at my taxes as you mentioned that I got to pay my county tax. I'm like, man, this is so much money, but I have that money. I have the luxury of having that money. And so, when you think about it, there are a lot of ups, especially when you buy a property. I'm going to tell you guys, when you get your first property, your second property, when you first get it, it is tough, right? Especially if you're buying something that what we call a value add, where you're forcing value to a project. It could be tough. It could be difficult. But when we look back at it, it was a small problem, right?
Yeah.
For a bigger goal and the property's cash flow. And I look back at properties I bought 4 or 5 years ago, and I'm like, man, I wish I would have bought more then, right?
Yep.
And I look at properties. I mean, I have interest rates of 8%, 9%, 9.5, but those can be refinanced, right? Things can get better, right? So we buy it with the mentality of, does it make sense now? Will it make sense in the future? And real estate is not I want to tell it for everybody listening, it's not a get rich quick gimmick. If you look at the people who've made money in real estate, they've usually held real estate for a minimum of 10 years. Minimum. When you get to that 20-year period, that's where the get rich quick you see, right? But they've held it
Yes.
for 20 years. But you see, oh man, yeah, he had real estate. Look at this. At that point, that 20 years, that person has outworked most people with this property. By the time you hold it for 20 years, you lost for commercial debt, you've paid off your commercial debt in 20 years, right?
Right.
So that person is really free. They are debt
Yeah.
free at that point. So the first 5 years, you see most of your payments are going to go to interest. It's daunting. I think I just got a statement. It was like $100 went to principal and like 900 went to interest. It's crazy to look at. But I know 5 years from now, okay, 10 years from now, what am I looking at? My appreciation is higher. The property's worth more. The cash flow is higher. So you always have to think long term, especially in real estate investing.
Yeah. And I get those amortization schedules are scary and it's definitely weighted. It's not the banks that created that, right? The reason they're like that is because you want a set monthly payment that goes for 15, 20, 30 years. But in order to do that, you do heavily stack the interest at the beginning, and it's scary. But look, your tenant's paying it, right? Right?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's the other thing people don't talk about enough is that your tenant is paying it. So even though you might only be netting 200, 300, you're actually getting a full benefit of that money. Right. Because your tenant is paying it down every single month. You should be getting that. You're getting that full benefit of that money. So don't just look at the net cash flow. Net cash flow is very important, but also look at the buy down, the pay down of your mortgage note. So take that into effect as well.
Yeah, totally. And obviously, the appreciation over time, real estate does go up in value over time. There could be hiccups here and there, but
Mhm.
it will go up. And then the tax benefits is huge. You're getting ready to pay some county taxes. That sounds like property taxes to me, but
Yep.
even your
Yep.
income taxes, that's deductible. Those
Mhm.
county taxes, right? So it is a good investment. So a lot of our listeners are newer, but there are obviously we're trying to sell real estate. They're already excited about real estate. Let's face it. But they might want to get and connect with you on your free group.
Mhm.
So how do they do that?
You can just message me. Easiest way to get a hold of me: Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook. If you send me a message, it's really me. Just send me a message, Ray Glymph, Glymph. You can send me a message. I'm not hard to find, and I'll reply back, and I can send a direct link to them.
I think we have a little bit more time here, so I want to keep going, but I want to definitely get that out there now, and then maybe again at the end.
For sure.
Um, do you recommend? I mean, I hear this door. I have this many doors. I have the. I hear this all the time, and for some people, I just wonder if that's the right move for them. Because single family, you did really well on yours, and I think for some people that might be better. Do you recommend trying to get into multis and commercial and all of that?
Um, so I'll give you an example. I'll say yes. Eventually, first take down a few single families and make sure it's something you want to do. Right. If it's something that you decide that you want to do, real estate is something I wanted to do full time. I want to focus solely on real estate, and I knew I needed multifamily to do that. But I remember I had for a single family house. I don't own many single family houses either, but I remember single family house. We had a main sewer line bust, and it cost me I think about $12,000.
Wow,
That was my
you're out.
cash flow.
Yeah.
That was my cash flow for the year. I
Yeah.
lost a year's cash flow for crap, literally crap. Okay. So when you think about that, if you own single family houses, that could happen to any of your single family houses. You got to replace a roof. You got to replace a water tank. The expenses are the same on a multi-family house. I had another sewer line go out. This was last year. Main sewer line go out. Cost me the same $12,000. It only set me back 2 months. There's a big difference, right? So that's what I like people to understand is when you get into multifamily, there is a huge difference. The roof, my roof expense may be more, but I'm not putting roofs on six different units. I'm putting one roof on one unit. It should last me my lifetime, right? So there is a benefit to going multifamily. I do not recommend starting multifamily. People say you put the same amount of energy and the same amount of effort, and I'll be honest with you guys, doors don't really matter, right? The only thing that matters is cash flow, right? There might be people with 10, 15, 20 doors making more cash flow than me, right? Doors do not matter. Doors teach you that somebody has an amount of experience dealing with certain things, right? However, at the end of the day, it's cash flow. It's how much is going into our bank accounts. That's all that matters. Um, when all the debt's paid down, maybe I win, right? But at this time, it's about what the cash flow is. Right now, I have enough cash flow coming in, I can live comfortably. When the debt's
Yeah, I
paid,
guess it depends on what the goal is, right?
yes. Yeah, and for some people, it's not to again not to retire off real estate. Some people it's just to supplement something else. Some people buy a house or a duplex just to help pay for their kids' college tuition. Great strategy. I love that strategy. And then maybe when the kids are 18, they go to college there and their kids can live there. Great strategy. I think it depends on again what your why is. Having a clear
Yeah.
definition of that why you're getting or investing into real estate. Is it just a tax haven for you? Okay. That goes into a different type of investment strategy. So you just want to make sure that you understand from the beginning whatever your strategy is.
Yeah, I've got a close friend that Ray, he works maybe 2 hours a week. I'm not even exaggerating here. It's because of real estate. He's done well with it. and he might make 15 grand a month cash flow. And that's good for him. Like that's all he wants. And then he wants to go out and mountain bike and hike and snowboard.
Yep.
So that's what he does. For me, and it sounds like you, we might want a little bit more than that. So
Yeah.
we're willing to grind it out. But yeah, to Ray's point, it's definitely what you're trying to accomplish. So you got to understand that first, I think. I assume you agree with that.
Yeah. And you know what? You got to figure out what you want in life, like for future purposes. Like I knew I wanted to retire and make 100 grand a month. That was my number. I wanted 100 grand a month, million a year. What number of houses does it take to get to 100 grand
Yes.
a month? Right. And then another thing is like, once you understand real estate, you kind of become like a sucker for the game. Like I'm a sucker for a good deal, man. Like
Me too.
yeah, and you know what? I told myself this year I wasn't buying anything. I bought millions in real estate this year. I wasn't supposed to buy anything. It was supposed to be, hands up, just let the market do what it does. And I've bought more than I should have. And the thing is, it's a good deal. Like I know my numbers. I know I can make money on it. And so once you understand real estate and you understand basic principles, 90% of new investors do not understand how to value a home, right? They don't understand the numbers of investing. If you can understand the numbers, you can make a lot of money in real estate investing.
Yes. And to your point about the deals that you're buying that you told yourself you weren't going to, deals start coming to you when you have 10 or 12, 15 years experience like Ray. Um, and I know that. So what is hard is those first couple, but as you grow, deals just start coming and it becomes much, much easier. It's like a plane, right? It takes all
Hmm.
the energy to get off the ground. And you said earlier, Ray, that it's hard when you buy that first house. The managing the contractors, managing the tenants or property management company, whatever it is difficult. And
Let's talk about that too. I want to share this too. When you have just one house or two houses or even just five, it is hard to put in place people and systems.
yes,
Very difficult. For guys, once you get to scale, and if you get to that point where you're like, I want 10 or I want 20, by this time, I have plumbers who pretty much work for me,
yeah,
right? I have
good point.
electricians who pretty much work for me. They work with me. I'm a good person in their business. I'm not just Joe Schmo anymore, right? Because if you only have one unit, finding a handyman, that could be difficult for you, right? I have handymen that work for me pretty much 24/7 at this point. So building those systems are going to be the hardest part when you start investing in real estate, I think, right? Finding a good property manager. Now, your property manager can help you, they can hurt you, but a good property manager can also assist you in finding those people, right? A really good property manager help you find that handyman, help you find that plumber, help you find that electrician. Those are going to be the pieces that you need on your team. So I think the biggest thing, if you guys are starting, if you're looking to get started, build your team, build your network.
Love it. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I've written many, many articles and blog posts about this. Furnace goes out in the middle of the night on Christmas Eve or
Mm,
whatever. The worst thing that you could think of. If you have that network and people that you could count on, then it's not really that big of a deal. That becomes a huge deal if you're picking up well, they don't have phone books anymore, neither, right? But if you're Googling it, that becomes difficult.
yeah, you're not gonna get them to come out on Christmas Day. And I'll tell you, what happened Christmas Day. Our sprinkler alarm, main sprinkler alarm, burst top floor.
Oh, no.
Yeah, and so having to make those calls are difficult. They're expensive,
Yeah.
right? Because you're gonna pay a super premium. It's not just any night or it's not just any day. It's Christmas Day. I'm with my family. You're gonna have to pay a premium. But having those connections because you work with them through the whole year makes it a lot easier.
Yeah, 100% agree with that. That wasn't where I was going with my question, but I'm so glad that you brought that up because that is important. What I want to ask you is, so it's hard when you buy that first one, and you mentioned
Mhm.
that, and I totally agree with you. But it's also scary. And what we haven't talked about that is how do just getting over that fear. I'll tell you, I've been investing for over 20 years. I've had a portfolio of single family homes, almost 60. Went back down, it's bounced around.
Mhm.
I own some commercial industrial buildings, and I'm getting ready to close on an office, 23,000-foot office building. And I got to tell you, Ray, even all of that experience, I still have a little bit of fear because I've never bought an office building before. So for someone that's getting started, knowing you have to buy that first one if you want to hit your goal, if you want to hit that why, you got to at least do one.
Mhm.
How do we do it? How do we get over
Uh,
that fear?
So one, you never get over it. You face it, right? I will tell you guys honestly, I just closed on a small flip property. I had the same butterflies that I had in my stomach.
Yeah.
Then when I just closed on a $1 million deal last month, had the same butterflies for both of them, right? It does that fear does not go away. It's still money being put on the line. Real estate is still a risk, right? The acronym FAIR is face everything and run or face everything and rise, right? I'm a win, right? And the way to win is to make sure that you have done your due diligence. You know your numbers inside and out. You know your market inside and out. If you want to be successful in real estate, you have to know these. If you don't know these, you will fail, right? You will fail. Get around groups, find mentors, find people who are doing this in the same space. Ask them how you can add value to them. Be a part of them. See how they're underwriting deals, see their processes, see their systems, and then see what you can do to make yours better. Right. But the fear doesn't go away. It doesn't go away. No matter how much money I have. Like I said, I'll buy a small deal. I just bought one. I closed last week. I think it actually today's yeah, I closed Monday. I closed this Monday. And I still like had the same butterflies. Like, man, is this a good deal? I already underwrote it, right? I already know it's a great deal, but I still had that little bit of doubt. And so either that doubt's gonna hold you back, which it does a lot of people. They call it analysis paralysis, where you'll just keep looking, keep looking. But eventually you have to know how to analyze a deal. The deals I'm buying with great leverage. I know that in worst case scenario, if I need to, I can sell them immediately and walk away, right?
So
And
you're
worst case
limiting your
scenario,
downside.
I won't even buy it with a downside. If I got to sell it with a downside, it's a break even, right? I'm gonna sell it. I have enough leverage in it that I could buy it, sell it immediately with a profit, right? So that is how we're buying right now.
And you still have the butterflies. So for the
Still,
listener, the advice is get used to it. I mean, you're going to have this, it's part of the business.
hmm yeah, it's part of it, but embrace it. You'll have fear before you do anything.
Yeah.
Right? You could have fear before you walk into the street. But guess what? You've done it so many times. You've done it and you keep doing it. You just get better at it, right? Just like walking and running and doing everything. It takes practice. You got to do the first step. You got to get your first one.
Yeah. Okay. That's great. Ray, I love all of this advice, and I'm going to go through my notes, what I pulled out of our conversation, and let you give me any feedback if there is any of what I could be adding to my notes. I think the listeners really appreciate when we go through that. Then I'm going to ask you for a last piece of advice, so start thinking about that. But here's my here's my notes that I got from our conversation here today, Ray, and I wrote down how can I be better? This is what true leaders are always asking themselves. I think you said that really early on in the podcast here. And then on real estate, why real estate? You said I just got paid. You know, you didn't have the bar working late at night, the restaurants. You just got paid. Real estate is a fantastic passive income investment. And it's not always super passive, but it is residual at the very least. Your strategy will for or your strong, if I could read my own handwriting, your strong why will force your success. Those are mostly my words, but I pulled that out of what you were sharing with us. Um, and then investing always includes managing the investment. So don't forget that piece. It looks good by the seminars and the people on TV, but there's actually more to it than just finding it and buying it. It's not a get rich quick, a minimum of 10 years, but once you get to 15, 20, it really starts paying off. All that matters, cash flow. Cash flow is huge, which is something we didn't spend a lot of time on, but you did mention, part of your payment every month goes to principal, which is profit, but it's not putting cash in your pocket. So be very careful with that. Stay in front of your cash flow. Skill makes it easier. And I love this one. Fear is face everything and run, or face everything and rise. So to you, listener, which is it going to be? How did I do, Ray?
That was amazing, man. I said all of that? No.
No, you did great. This is so much fun getting to know you and your background. I was middle class, man, so I didn't have that type of experience. I can't even imagine, but I also believe that we are who we are because of our experiences. So I think that that tough and challenging time for you made you who you are.
Yeah,
So,
I agree.
all right, let's share if you have something, a last little nugget here that you could share with the listener, and then we'll get your contact info.
Um, well, one, you guys are already in the right place. If you're listening, you're trying to be better. Right? You already started the work. Most people won't even start the work. Now it's time to take another step. Figure out how you can get into groups, communities, get around people who are investing in real estate, ask them questions, see how you can bring value. If you want to get to the next step, that's the easiest way to do it.
Nice. How, if we want to connect with you, how do we do it?
Any social media, you can find me Ray Ray, Glymph Glymph. Just send me a direct message. I'll respond back.
All right, Ray, I know you have a lot on your plate. You got a lot going on. You're out there grinding, and you still gave us 40 minutes of your time. So I want to say thank you for that. We really do appreciate bringing you on the show. Hopefully, you'll get some value. I know we did. So thank you. And for the listener, you too gave up 40 minutes of your time. And we really appreciate that. So if you like what you heard, if you like Ray's story, learned anything out of it, please give us a 5-star review. Maybe share it with a pal or two. We'd really appreciate that. And I would close with saying, I hope you make this day a great one. Thanks, Ray. Hey guys, I hope you enjoyed this episode as much as I did. If you did, please be sure to follow and leave us a review. Oh yeah, and tell a friend.